All right. Um, the first poem was a total gift. It just came out of the blue to me. It's not my poem. It's a poem by a lovely woman from Nashville, and it's appropriately called Sunday Morning. We'll start out with this. With the first crack of light, the first hint of a new day, I heard a small voice outside my window chirp with great excitement and gratitude. For me, for me, for me. How could I stay in bed? The first crack of light, the first hint of a day, I heard a small voice outside my window chirp with great excitement and gratitude. For me, for me, for me. How could I stay in bed? Beautiful poem. It's by a woman who's passed away, Linda Zralek from Nashville, uh, and friend of the group here, Kathy from Nashville, sent it on. She was a nun who left the convent to marry a priest who left the rectory, and they had a great life. And her husband Jim only saw one of her poems during her life. She was a bit like Emily Dickinson. She put them all in the drawer somewhere, and they brought the poems out after she passed away, and she's got some beautiful ones in here. Uh, so that's the first, like something got you here. Something said, for me, for me, for me, like a cardinal probably outside her door, outside her window. So Sunday morning. All right. Well, this poem it came just in time. It's called Coming Attractions. Sort of came this morning. Didn't have much. I had the poem. I was going to read a couple of Linda's, and that would be worthwhile. But then this one sort of came out on the page, so I'll try it out here. Coming Attractions. We Homo amnesians are just a micro blip in the vast unfolding universe. We're forgetful, crazy cats, but we're feral and hungry and can occasionally surprise. The omega point isn't a point at all, but rather an event horizon, a force we're drawn to and irresistibly drawn into, the ultimate black hole that some call love. Theophany will trump theology and empire eventually. Revolution is evolution, and the evolution of consciousness is the only real revolution that's coming. We Homo amnesians are just a microblip in this vast unfolding universe. We're forgetful, crazy cats, but we're feral and hungry and can occasionally surprise. The omega point isn't a point at all, but rather an event horizon, a force we're drawn into, irresistibly drawn into. The ultimate black hole that some call love. Theophany will trump theology and empire eventually. Revolution is evolution, and the evolution of consciousness is the only real revolution that's coming. Coming Attractions. All right, well, let's open this up a little bit. Some of you are familiar with the term I use called Homo amnesians instead of Homo sapien. Our real gift is we can forget anything and everything, and usually the most profound things, what we keep in our memory are these trivial things, trivia, trivial pursuits. But And we're just a microblip in this unbelievable unfolding universe. All these galaxies and whatever, and here we are, Homo amnesians. But we're forgetful, crazy cats. I mean, look at the world. We are crazy, but we're feral and hungry. We're sort of wild and hungry, and we can occasionally surprise. I mean, there's been some great Homo amnesians, saints, in traditions, and we can occasionally surprise. The omega point isn't a point at all. If you've ever been to Loose Leaf Hollow, hanging inside the doorway, can't show it to you now, but some of you know this. There's an old stained glass window that was in St. Meinrad's monastery up in southern Indiana, Benedictine monastery. It's old German stained glass from the 19th century. And when they remodeled the church, they took out the old stuff and put in the new ones. And this ended up in some priest's garage. And when that some priest died, his niece, Margot Hyatt, who's a 80-year-old artist who lives in Annapolis, Maryland now, but she lived here in Bardstown. When I opened this place up, she says, I've got something for that space. And I said, really? And it was like, getting the poem in the mail from Linda. People just, if you've ever come here, most of the stuff on the walls, among other things, was given to me by somebody else. People just keep giving. It's the remarkable thing about this place, that people just keep giving to it. So she brought it. I mean, the thing weighs a ton. I have no, but I had to put two, I'm looking at it, I had to put these two anchors uh, in the ceiling that really could hold a lot of weight. And so it's up there, just beautiful German stained glass old styles up with this omega, alpha and omega. The omega point was a term that one of my favorite Homo amnesians, who was a great man, Teilhard de Chardin, he said, we're all going to this omega point. He saw life in an evolutionary context. He was way before his time. And the Jesuits didn't quite know what to do with him, to be honest. And they sort of marginalized him. But he's totally hip right now if you read Teilhard, because he's talking about this thing that's pulling us all. It's what pulled you all here, even though you didn't wake up thinking, well, all right, the omega point, all right. But there's some force that pulled you all here. It's not me. I'm just part of this thing. But so the omega point isn't a point at all, but rather an event horizon, a force we are drawn to and irresistibly drawn into. The ultimate black hole that some call love. Jesus called it love, or at least St. John did. And we were talking about that yesterday when we talked about these 8 Beatitudes, these things that virtually nobody really remembers or understands who are raised Christian like I was. And then the next line is theophany will trump theology and empire eventually. Theophany is the fanny part at the end, comes from Greek, which means to see through. And theo, of course, means God. So eventually we can see through the surface of things, like the epiphany is when the wise men saw through the humble situation there in this baby, and they saw there was something great there in the manger. So theophany is the ability to see God in everything. It's really what a mystic viewpoint is. You look at everything. The Zen guys would say, one of the great Zen answers, and because they were theophanists too, even though they don't talk about the G word much, somebody said, what is enlightenment? And Zhou Shu, the great Chinese Zen master, said, shit on a stick. The shit stick. Yeah. And could you see the ultimate in that? We think it's got to be in a cathedral. So anything. My first Zen master, Suzuki Roshi, said, you must be prepared to bow to everything, even dust bunnies. That's theophany. That's a sense of everything is sacred. And believe, if we had a world with a few more mystics like that in it, a few more people with a who saw things as the theophany, what would that do to the world? What what could we destroy? In this willy-nilly fashion that we're cutting down the rainforest now, like as we speak, we couldn't. Yeah, theophany will trump theology and empire eventually. Revolution is evolution. And the evolution of consciousness, that's what we were talking about yesterday. We talked about the 8 stages of kind of evolution of consciousness from Jesus's perspective. Well, I never saw the Beatitudes like that. I memorized them, uh, you know, et cetera, in Catholic school, but never really saw them as sequential and, stages of enlightenment. Those of you who were in for the talk yesterday know what the last stage was. It was love. We're evolving into that. Not the love boat, not what we've done with that word, but this omega point where cruelty and darkness and the craziness of this world will yield as consciousness evolves. It is a slow process. It took billions of years to even get the planet, and then a few billion more to get life, and then another billion to get life that started to look like us. This is not a quick process. Violent revolution doesn't work because it becomes violent because people want a change right now. This is a slow process. The evolution of your own consciousness, you see. Theophany will trump theology and empire eventually. Right now we're witnessing the ruins of empire. And it's slow, but evolution of consciousness is the thing to hope for. It's the only thing to have theological hope in. Am I optimistic? Not really, but I have a deep hope. And it sounds paradoxical, but I believe in what we're about to do next. I brought in a visual aid somewhere. Where the heck did it go? Oh, it must. Oh, gee, it went on the floor. Well, I need an assistant here. Where are you? Let's see if I can get it. Yeah. St. Patrick had the shamrock. I've got the Oreo. Okay. And this is what our meetings are about every time. This is the structure. We do a little introduction, which hopefully opens you up to what we're doing next. The cream filling, the thing that holds the 2 wafers together, is the meditation, is the drop into the deepest level of consciousness, say. And then the third wafer, the other side of the coin, is we'll come out of that meditational space, contemplation, into a kind of contemplative conversation. It wouldn't work any other way in my view. We just start out saying, whatever's, if we started out with a conversation, we've all had those experiences. Who knows where they go? But you guys who have been here for this 3-part thing know how brilliant the contemplative conversation is. But the thing that holds it all together is that cream filling. And that's actually dropping into the experience, dropping into, you could call it a black hole. Black is beautiful. If you could, black still has that idea of darkness and fear or something, but this black hole is the source of this incredible energy. So energetic. And so when we drop into, I read you another poem by Linda here, because I talk about, dancing with God and dropping into God, and the G word still gives people problems. This is the last poem in her book. Lovely poem. We talk about God as though we know what we're talking about. I do. Perhaps you do too. In truth, All I can do is use words to describe the love my heart has come to know. We talk about God as though we know what we're talking about. I do. Perhaps you do too. In truth, all I can do is use words to describe the love my heart has come to know. And really, that's the only position I talk from, doing this, dropping, I say you're dropping our body and mind into the heart here. And in the heart, then, we're present, open, and available. And as they said in a previous poem, then we just let God do what God does for 20 minutes. We can let God do what God does. 20 minutes, we can stop trying to control everything. Okay? Yeah. And so it's an experiment. But over 50 years of doing this, for me, uh, all I can say is, and what keeps me here is the love that I felt in the process. And that takes a while. Takes a while. So, if we're going to shift, if we can shift to meditative mode, if sometimes you need to shift your seat a little bit, and I'll just invoke the space. The motto here at the Lucy Follow is creating a space for grace. And you do have to be creative in this process. You do have to create some space. If you create it, it will come. So this is a nice invocation that people like. I like it. I use it myself when I'm sitting by myself. It goes like this. Return like a mountain. This gets me to sit up straight and to really be in my body, just as a mountain is massive and physical. So when we drop the body into the heart, we're not getting rid of the body. We're integrating the body in the journey. So return like mountain. Release like ocean. What we're releasing is any of the thoughts that are important on the surface of things, but they sort of get in the way of this dropping into the depths of consciousness to get a taste, to get some experience of what that's like. So, release like ocean. It's almost like the out breath. We're just letting go of for 20 minutes or so, some passage of time, letting go of having to deal with the surface of things and relax like sky. The sky is the vastest thing. Mountains are big, oceans are bigger, but the sky is the vastest thing of all. The empty sky, mind, we're dropping into that. So return like mountain, release like ocean, relax like sky, and rejoice. For you are, once again, dancing with God.